10 countries that saved Canada after Trump's tariffs. When Trump's tariffs hit, it wasn't policy. It was betrayal. Canada's steel, aluminum, even syrup, under siege overnight. Years of trust? Gone in a tweet. But Canada didn't crawl back. It got bold. It got loud. It got out. And in breaking free from America's grip, it found 10 new lifelines. Countries that turned crisis into comeback. This is how Canada stopped depending and started dominating. Number 10. The European Union, Canada's unexpected lifeline. Imagine this. You're a Canadian entrepreneur, let's call you Alex, who has spent years building a thriving business exporting maple syrup to the US. Suddenly, in 2018, tariffs hit like a sledgehammer, and your primary market becomes a minefield. But here's where the story takes a turn. Thanks to the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA, between Canada and the EU, which provisionally came into effect in 2017, new doors opened. This agreement eliminated 98% of tariffs between the two regions, creating a fertile ground for trade growth. Since the implementation of CETA, Canadian exports to the EU have seen a significant boost. For instance, Canadian seafood, medical technology, and aerospace products have found new markets in cities like Amsterdam, Milan, and Stockholm. Even Canadian farms are now competing effectively with local European producers. Take Alex's story. For example, when the US market became volatile, Alex turned to Europe. Through CETA, Alex's maple syrup found new fans in France and Germany, leading to a 30% increase in sales within a year. What seemed like a disaster turned into an opportunity for growth and diversification. While the US was raising trade barriers, Europe was extending a hand. The EU's commitment to free trade and mutual growth provided Canada with a reliable partner, ensuring that businesses like Alex's not only survived but thrived. This shift wasn't just about individual businesses. It signaled a broader realignment in Canada's trade relationships, emphasizing the importance of diversification and resilience in an unpredictable global market. Let's talk. Have you experienced the effects of international trade shifts? How do you see agreements like CETA impacting local businesses and economies? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story insightful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-world economic narratives that matter. Coming up next, we'll explore how Canada's trade relationships with other countries have evolved in recent years, highlighting the strategies that have led to success in the global marketplace. Number 9. Indonesia, Canada's bold leap into Southeast Asia's economic powerhouse. Remember when we talked about how Canada found a new trade partner in the European Union after the US imposed tariffs? Well, buckle up, because Canada's next move is even more thrilling. In late 2024, Canada and Indonesia signed a Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, CEPA, set to take effect in 2026. This deal is a game-changer, opening doors to Indonesia's vast market of 279 million people. The numbers speak. Two-way trade between Canada and Indonesia reached $5.1 billion in 2023. Canada's exports to Indonesia include agricultural products, fertilizers, and natural resources. Indonesia is Canada's largest export market in Southeast Asia. Indonesia's agri-food import market is valued at $38 billion, and Canada currently holds a $1.6 billion share. With the new agreement, Canadian farmers have the potential to significantly increase their exports of wheat, soybeans, and frozen beef. Imagine Sarah, a Canadian farmer from Saskatchewan. When US tariffs disrupted her primary market, she looked eastward. Thanks to the CEPA, Sarah began exporting her wheat to Indonesia, tapping into a market hungry for high-quality agricultural products. Her farm not only survived but thrived, showcasing the real-world impact of international trade agreements. Indonesia is rich in critical minerals like nickel, tin, and copper, essential for electric vehicle batteries and renewable energy technologies. Canada's expertise in sustainable mining and clean tech positions it as a valuable partner in Indonesia's green growth initiatives. With over 50 million students, Indonesia's education sector presents vast opportunities. Canadian institutions can offer specialized training programs and higher education partnerships, fostering innovation and knowledge exchange. This partnership signifies Canada's strategic pivot towards the Indo-Pacific region, reducing reliance on traditional markets and embracing emerging economies. It's a testament to Canada's adaptability and forward-thinking approach in a rapidly changing global landscape. What are your thoughts on Canada's expanding trade relationships? How do you see these partnerships shaping our economy and global standing? Share your insights in the comments below. If you found this discussion enlightening, you do not want to miss the chance to share this with a friend. Trust me. Next up, we'll explore Canada's burgeoning relationship with another powerhouse that's redefining global trade dynamics. You won't want to miss it. Number 8. Ecuador, the underdog deal that's reshaping Canada's future. It started with silence. Not the kind you enjoy with a cup of coffee, but the kind that comes after your biggest client walks away without warning. That was Liam's reality, mid-2024, when Trump's revived tariffs blew a hole through his Canadian fertilizer exports. Orders vanished. Phones stopped ringing. And Liam? He sat staring at the truck keys he might have to hand over. But halfway across the continent, in the lush highlands of Ecuador, something else was happening. Camila Gomez didn't grow up rich. Her family's cacao farm, perched on the misty edge of Cuenca, had been passed down since her grandfather survived a volcanic landslide. The soil? Gold. But the buyers? Distant and expensive. Every time she tried to export her beans to North America, the tariffs made her dream feel like a joke. Until 2025, when Canada, bruised but not broken, pivoted away from its longtime economic partner and did the unthinkable. It signed a historic free trade agreement with Ecuador. Yup, Ecuador. Not Brazil. Not Argentina. Ecuador. A country people barely mention unless they are booking a trip to the Galapagos. But this wasn't just tourism. This was a full-blown economic realignment. Canadian companies, desperate to diversify, found gold in Ecuador's underutilized assets. Agriculture, prime. Mining, explosive. Clean energy, practically untouched. The trade deal eliminated tariffs on key exports, cut red tape, and opened the floodgates. Fertilizer, tech, and Canadian AI tools started flowing south. Ecuadorian tuna, flowers, copper, and yes, Camila's cacao started flooding north. Camila's first Canadian shipment landed in Vancouver in just 6 days. Her profits tripled. She bought a drone to monitor her crops and signed up her kids for remote Canadian school programs with the Wi-Fi she finally had the money to install. And Liam? That same fertilizer no one in the US wanted anymore? He now ships it to half a dozen Ecuadorian farms like Camila's. They text. They Zoom. He even learned how to say harvest in Spanish. This isn't just trade. It's a lifeline. And here's what you need to know. Ecuador has over $3 billion in critical minerals Canada desperately needs. Their renewable energy pledge? 100% green by 2035. And get this, Canada may now get first access to lithium and copper mines that China's been eyeing for years. So while the US builds walls, Canada's out here building bridges southward. And these bridges? They are made of gold, grain, and second chances. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Canada should go all in on Latin America? Or is this too risky? Drop your take in the comments. I'll be pinning the most savage response. And hey, don't go anywhere because next up is number 7, where we reveal the volcano-powered nation that's becoming Canada's most unlikely innovation partner. And trust me, the twist in that story, it'll leave you speechless. Number 7, China, trading through the tension. They told her it was over. Emma, a third-generation lobster fisher from Nova Scotia, stood in silence next to stacks of crates, hundreds of pounds of a finest catch, prepped for export to China. But in early 2025, the news hit like a steel trap. Beijing had slapped a 25% tariff on Canadian seafood. Her biggest customer? Gone. Her bills? Still due. Her son's college fund? At risk of vanishing. It felt like economic exile. She wasn't alone. Across Canada, thousands of exporters watched their largest Asian market freeze up overnight. Political friction. Diplomatic standoffs. The headlines were grim. And yet, the numbers told a different story. Despite icy relations, Canadian exports to China didn't just survive. They roared back with teeth. Seafood alone? $1.4 billion in 2024. Canadian barley, canola, wood pulp, liquefied natural gas, all flowing east like nothing happened. In fact, trade between Canada and China has been quietly growing. Why? Because when it comes to business, both countries have one golden rule. Separate business from the bullshit. China might not send flowers diplomatically, but economically, it's still showing up with a suitcase full of cash. Canadian seafood saw a 7.6% jump. Cereals? Over $1.5 billion in Chinese imports. Natural resources and energy? China is hoovering up Canadian exports like they're going out of style. And now's a good moment to pause, because this next part's about you. From our analytics, over 70% of you watching right now aren't subscribed. That's like ordering a 5-star meal and dipping before dessert. You've been with us this far. Clearly you're hooked. So why not hit that subscribe button right now? Join the fastest growing tribe of global thinkers, traders, and curious minds who want to understand how power really shifts in this world. Hit it now, and I promise, what's coming next will make you feel like you've got insider access to the future. Thank you. Alright, let's get back in. Emma didn't give up. She adapted, pivoted her lobster business toward Indo-Pacific buyers, diversified into frozen goods, and started partnering with local grocers to build a domestic market. That's the Canadian story in a nutshell. When slammed by sanctions, it doesn't fold. It flexes. While the US played defense, pulling back from a global stage, Canada doubled down on what it does best, staying open, staying smart, staying global. And China, for all its complications, it's too big to ignore. That partnership may come with thorns, but for now, it's helping Canada keep its economy buzzing. But here's what's wild. This isn't even the most surprising country on the list. Because coming up next is a nation that went from being a footnote to a financial lifeline. You don't want to miss that twist. Smash the like button if Emma's resilience hit you. And tell me in the comments, should Canada keep doing business with China, or is it time to pull the plug? I want to hear your take. Number 6. Japan, when a dying fire met an unexpected savior. Liam stood alone in the middle of a frostbitten Alberta field, his boots sinking into the icy dirt, gripping a foreclosure notice like it was the last rope on a sinking ship. His cattle farm, passed down from his grandfather after World War II, was drowning. No buyers, no banks willing to help. His neighbors, they'd already sold. And Liam was next. Half a world away, in a high-rise office in Tokyo, a different kind of decision was being made. Japan, under the CPTPP trade pact, had just greenlit a massive surge in imports from Canada. No drama, no delay, precision, scale, stability. Quietly, Japan became Canada's fastest-growing partner in the region. By the end of 2023, exports to Japan grew by 38%. Beef, canola, blueberries, even aerospace parts were moving fast. And guess what? Japan led the charge. For Liam, that trade policy didn't just hit the news, it hit his mailbox. He received a contract. A Japanese distributor needed premium Alberta beef. It was real. Within weeks, he was hiring help again. His cattle weren't just staying afloat, they were feeding families in Kyoto and plating dishes in Tokyo skyscrapers. Hold on. Let me ask you something right now. Have you ever been one decision away from losing everything, and didn't even know salvation was already in motion halfway across the world? Do you believe countries like Japan, that move in silence but strike with purpose, are better partners than louder allies who hesitate? And be honest, would you trade short-term headlines for long-term certainty if it meant saving your family's legacy? Tell me in the comments. I don't want to just drop facts. I want to hear how you see it. Now, here's the twist you didn't see coming. Japan used to slap a 38.5% tariff on Canadian beef. Under the CPTPP, that's sliding down to 9% by 2033. That one detail? It turned Liam's death sentence into a second chance. But the real gut punch came after. In early 2025, Liam collapsed in that same field. Stroke. The years of stress had taken their toll. Doctors said the trade deal may have saved his farm, but it almost came too late for him. He recovered, but barely. And what truly healed him? A handwritten letter from a Japanese chef. A video of Hokkaido schoolkids blessing their meals. His beef. His story. His legacy, living on in a culture halfway across the world. Now that's something that hits you deep. So I'll leave you with this. Is Japan teaching us how quiet loyalty outpaces loud politics? Or is this just one lucky alignment? And hang tight, because coming up next, we are heading somewhere unexpected. Smaller on the map, but massive in momentum. You don't want to miss what's coming. Number 5. South Korea, the lifeline Canada never saw coming. In early 2020, Michael, an Alberta rancher, watched everything crumble. His cattle weren't moving. US tariffs had slammed his export routes shut. The market was flooded. Prices crashed. And the bills? They kept coming. He built this ranch from dirt with his father. 3 generations of hands worked that land. And now, it was slipping away. But then, quietly, something shifted. South Korea. While headlines screamed about US trade wars and European red tape, South Korea moved with precision. No noise. No drama. Just action. They started buying Canadian beef, wood, seafood, energy, and they didn't stop. By 2023, Canadian exports to South Korea surged past $5 billion, a record. A big chunk of that came from the struggling sectors nobody thought would recover. Let's pause right here. Have you ever felt like you were one bad month away from losing it all, only to be saved by something completely out of left field? And do you think Canada should lean more into these quiet giants like South Korea, countries that don't make noise, but move with precision and loyalty? We want your honest take in the comments. Your voice matters here. Back to Michael. He didn't just survive. He landed a contract through a Canadian-South Korean meat exporter that paid 30% above his previous rates. And with that deal, he kept the ranch, paid off the debt, even hired back the neighbor's kid who used to help him as a boy. Now, here's where it gets real. While the world obsessed over US inflation and European recession fears, Canada and South Korea were building something deeper. A 4.9 billion Canadian dollar EV battery plant in Ontario. 859 million Canadian dollar cathode facility in Quebec. Joint research in AI, clean tech, semiconductors, and defense innovation. This isn't just a trade relationship, it's a full-scale infrastructure alliance. The kind that doesn't just change industries, but rewrites Canada's long-term economic playbook. But here's the gut punch. For every Michael who was saved, there were 5 more who didn't make it. Who waited too long? Who bet everything on old partners that didn't show up? Because here's the hard truth, loyalty in global trade, it's rare. And when it comes, you better hold on tight. So when you hear South Korea and think K-pop or Samsung, think bigger. Think survival. Think redemption. Think quiet rescue missions that don't make headlines but save futures. Canada learned that lesson the hard way. And now, the question is, who else are we sleeping on? Stay close, because up next, we are heading somewhere you'd never expect. A country once struggling with trade is now silently outpacing US investment in Canadian AI. And trust me, you'll want to see how that happened. Number 4, Mexico, the neighbor Canada didn't expect to need. When Washington started turning inward, imposing tariffs, tightening policies, and fueling trade uncertainty, Canada didn't panic. It pivoted, and in a move few saw coming, it turned toward Mexico. Not out of desperation, but out of strategy. While US headlines screamed America first, Canada and Mexico were quietly rewriting the rules of engagement. Under the COSMA agreement, Canada's version of NAFTA reimagined, exports to Mexico surged, hitting $12.4 billion in 2024 alone. That's not a blip, that's a seismic shift. Canadian auto parts, aerospace tools, lentils, canola, even specialized electronics, Mexico wanted them all. And in return, Canada gained access to a rapidly growing innovation hub just south of the border. While American factories struggled to keep up with reshoring, Canadian-Mexican joint ventures popped up like wildfire, building EV components, AI-driven logistics, and agricultural tech designed to feed millions across the Americas. Now let's pause. Think about this. When your closest ally starts pulling away, do you cling tighter, or do you find someone else who actually wants to build with you? Because that's exactly what Canada did. And it's working. COSMA didn't just keep the lights on. It flipped the switch. And while most of us were distracted by US politics or China's economic maneuvers, Mexico became Canada's economic pressure valve. And here's where it gets deeper. Mexico didn't just step in as a buyer. It became a builder. Joint R&D labs in Guadalajara. Cross-border engineering schools in Montreal. A tech corridor stretching from Ontario to Querétaro. 2 countries, one silent mission. Outgrow the chaos. And they are doing it. Let me ask you this. Did you ever expect Mexico, not the US, not China, to potentially become Canada's second-largest trade ally by sector? Because that's what trade analysts are forecasting. Some are even calling it the new North American axis, fueled by trust, backed by innovation, and immune to the political whiplash of Washington. So tell me, does that make you feel hopeful or a little uneasy? Drop your take in the comments. This isn't just economics. This is about resilience. It's about how countries adapt when the rules get ripped up. And what Canada and Mexico are doing right now is nothing short of a quiet revolution. They are not playing catch-up. They are building forward. And for Canada, this isn't just about trade. It's about survival. About keeping doors open in a world that's closing fast. About finding new allies when old ones falter. But here's the twist, the kind that hits like a gut punch. While the world was watching China and the US battle for dominance, Mexico and Canada just rewrote the script without anyone noticing. And if the projections are right, by 2026, entire sectors of Canadian exports may rely more on Mexico than the United States. That's not just a shift. That's a turning point. The question now isn't if this alliance will grow, but whether anyone can catch up. Stick around, because what comes next will shake the foundation of global trade. Number 3. The Philippines, Canada's quiet trade powerhouse. In a world of shifting alliances and unpredictable markets, one partnership has been steadily gaining momentum: Canada and the Philippines. This relationship, often overshadowed by larger economies, is now emerging as a significant force in international trade. In 2023, bilateral merchandise trade between Canada and the Philippines reached $3.4 billion, with Canadian exports accounting for $1.2 billion. This marks a substantial increase from previous years, highlighting a growing demand for Canadian products such as wheat, meat, and fertilizers. The Philippines' evolving dietary preferences, influenced by urbanization and increased purchasing power, have led to a diversification from traditional staples like rice to. The Filipino community in Canada, nearing 1 million individuals, plays a pivotal role in strengthening bilateral relations. Their contributions span various sectors, including healthcare, finance, and education. This diaspora not only enriches Canada's multicultural fabric, but also fosters deeper economic and cultural connections between the two nations. Recognizing the potential for enhanced cooperation, Canada dispatched its largest trade delegation to the Philippines in December 2024. This mission aimed to explore investment opportunities in sectors like defense, agriculture, mining, energy, and infrastructure. Such initiatives underscore Canada's commitment to strengthening its presence in the Indo-Pacific region. Looking ahead, with exploratory talks underway for a potential Canada-Philippines free trade agreement, the future of this partnership looks promising. As both nations seek to diversify their trade portfolios and reduce reliance on traditional markets, this alliance offers mutual benefits and opportunities for growth. What are your thoughts on the evolving Canada-Philippines trade relationship? Do you see potential for further collaboration in emerging sectors like clean energy and technology? Share your insights and join the conversation below. Stay tuned as we continue to explore Canada's dynamic trade partnerships and their implications on the global stage. Number 2, Vietnam, from battlefield to boardroom. They once ran for cover beneath crumbling skies. Now, they run multi-million-dollar deals across global boardrooms. Vietnam's story isn't just surprising, it's seismic. In the ashes of war, this nation clawed its way up, decade by decade. And today, Vietnam has become one of Canada's fastest-growing trade partners, and almost no one saw it coming. Here's the twist that's got economists stunned. In 2024, bilateral trade with Canada surged past $11 billion, a staggering 76% growth since Vietnam joined the CPTPP trade pact. That's not a typo, that's a transformation. A former war zone is now a trade zone with rocket fuel in its veins. Canada ships in wheat, iron, tech, pharmaceuticals. Vietnam responds with high-value exports, seafood, electronics, clean agriculture, machinery. Even black pepper exports rose 81%. This isn't a one-way export lane. It's a buzzing economic freeway going both directions. But here's where it stings and sings. Canada needed to pivot. When geopolitical tensions left traditional trade routes tangled, Vietnam stepped in. Not out of charity, out of shared survival. Behind every container ship are real stakes, factories that stay open, families that eat, students who study, farmers who harvest. Because of this trade, thousands of Canadian jobs were saved from layoffs. Thousands of Vietnamese lives were pulled out of poverty. That's the part no one sees, the heartbeat under the headlines. But this isn't just about goods. It's about good timing. Vietnamese investors are now buying into Canada, tech startups, green energy, even academic institutions. And why wouldn't they? When you've built resilience from rubble, you know how to bet on the future. Now let me ask you something. And be honest, if Vietnam, once one of the poorest nations in Southeast Asia, can pull this off, what does that say about the rest of us? Are we moving fast enough? Or are we watching the train leave the station? This isn't just trade. It's a transformation of trust. It's countries betting on each other not because they have to, but because the world is shifting. Because if you don't evolve in global trade today, you get left behind tomorrow. So here's the gut punch. What if Vietnam, a country that once had nothing, is showing the rest of us what it means to have everything that matters? The world's watching. Are you? Let's talk. Would you invest in Vietnam? Could this be the new global trade superpower? And don't go anywhere. Because the number one country on this list isn't just shaking up Canada's economy, it's rewriting the future of global alliances. You're not gonna believe who it is. Number 1, Australia, the silent powerhouse. No drama, no headlines, just results. In an era when global uncertainty seems to rule the day, Canada and Australia have quietly been rewriting the rules of success. Since 2018, bilateral trade between these two vast nations has surged by 30%. In 2024 alone, Canadian exports reached an astonishing $4.2 billion, spanning sectors as diverse as mining technology, education, pharmaceuticals, and green materials. The driving force? A mutual need, Australia's hunger for cutting-edge Canadian clean tech, and Canada's quest for a trustworthy Pacific gateway. Let's step into the story of Lucas, a driven entrepreneur from Vancouver whose vision for sustainable mining solutions almost met a dead end amid rising global tensions. Lucas had spent years developing proprietary green mining technology that could revolutionize how we extract essential minerals with minimal environmental impact. However, as U.S. markets became unpredictable and political winds shifted, funding and demand began to waver. Lucas's business teetered on the brink, until he discovered an unexpected lifeline to Australia. Australia, a nation renowned for its resource wealth and innovation, wasn't just an economic partner. It was a visionary ally. Under the new trade dynamics, Lucas secured a groundbreaking contract with an Australian conglomerate eager for sustainable mining solutions. Overnight, his technology, once a glimmer of hope in a troubled market, catapulted into a new era of demand. Lucas's company became a flagship example of how the Canada-Australia partnership could not only stabilize but also invigorate struggling sectors. His success echoed across boardrooms from Sydney to Vancouver, affirming that when nations share a common vision, even the most precarious enterprises can find redemption. In 2024, Canada's exports to Australia weren't limited to high-tech innovations. They also included vital education services, with Canadian institutions captivating Australian students, ensuring knowledge exchange that enriches both cultures. High-quality pharmaceuticals from Canada met Australia's stringent healthcare needs, and green materials bolstered the country's environmental initiatives. On the flip side, Australia supplied Canada with essential goods like aluminium oxide, critical radioactive chemicals for energy and medical fields, and gold, a symbol of Australia's enduring mineral richness. But the collaboration goes far beyond simple commerce. Together, the two countries are building billion-dollar ventures that are shaping the future, hydrogen energy projects pioneering clean energy solutions, sustainable farming initiatives that merge technology and agriculture, and joint exploration of rare earth elements, which are crucial for the modern technological era. This isn't just trade. It's a blueprint for a resilient, sustainable future, built on mutual trust, shared values, and innovative spirit. Imagine the global stage as a vast chessboard. While other nations are paralyzed by drama and disruptive headlines, Canada and Australia are quietly, smartly outmaneuvering global chaos. Lucas's story is just one striking example among many of how this alliance is transforming challenges into opportunities, fueling reinvention and exponential growth. So, what do you think? Can this partnership be the model for international cooperation in the 21st century? Share your thoughts and let's talk about how nations, through genuine collaboration and visionary alliances, can create a future that's not only profitable but sustainable. And stay tuned, because the next chapter in our global trade saga is coming, and it promises to redefine everything you thought you knew about international economics.